MJ, welcome to the podcast. We are so excited to have you here with us today. Thank you so much for joining us.
You are welcome. I am happy to be here with both of you. You're both such wonderful individuals. This is going to be a fun conversation.
Yeah,
Great, thank
absolutely.
you.
Yeah.
So MJ, I was saying before we started recording, you are really, in my opinion, one of the pioneers in the world of water, the consciousness of water. And I actually read your book, Dancing with Water, in 2020 or 2021, I think it is, with a group of women. We were all in this Health Freedom Monterey committee, and it was just so nourishing to read the book with women. And my mind was blown. I think that was my main introduction to water. And I was just like, oh my gosh, there's this whole world about water that I need to know about. So, how did you start? What was your beginning in the world of water?
It's a long story. Help me make it short. But life takes you on a journey, and often you have no idea where you're going to end up. And that was kind of my journey with water. I had no intention ever of devoting my life, which is where I am now, to the study of water and to my interaction with water. But through the years, Um, my background is in plant science, and I have a master's degree in plant science.
Mm.
But through the years, I kind of got pressed into writing, and I had ended up doing writing, freelance writing, as I was raising children in the world of complementary medicine. So I got some background in that, and then I was introduced to this product. And usually things I didn't ever feel when people would introduce me to a new product, you'd take it for a while or whatever. But the water was different. And I noticed some interesting things happening very subtly sometimes. But it actually took me into an interesting cleanse when I jumped into it. And I thought, wow, there's something here. And then when I went to do the research, there was nothing in the literature about what they said was going on with this water. And so, the deeper my dive went, the further into this I got taken. And ultimately, I had an opportunity to meet and work with one of the first scientists who ever began to work on this concept of the structure of water. And come to find out, he did his PhD. I don't I guess neither one of you may have heard of this name, but he did his PhD under a very famous scientist in Utah by the name of Henry Eyring
Mm,
at the University of Utah. So he had background, this Korean scientist, way back in Utah. I mean, that was fascinating for me to find out.
yeah.
And they had written a book in 1969 called Significant Liquid Structures. And I
Um,
got a hold of that book, and there wasn't a lot in it that I could actually use, but it was a foundation. And then ultimately, because I started to do some writing for a company that was Korean, I ended up getting to meet this fellow because we had to find out who he was. His name was every now and again I could find his name, and people would say he had this book written in Korean, but it wasn't available in English. And there was
Mm.
no science out there to stand on, when I tried to write about this subject. So
Yeah.
um, anyway, I got to meet this fellow. I got to read all of his papers. He,
mhm.
he he was very well recognized in the Orient for his work, but in this country, we were a little bit behind the game, and we still considered his work and this whole concept to be snake oil. But anyway, I got to work with him and bring his work into English. And in the process of reading his papers and reading his work and working through a translation that we ultimately published as a book called The Water Puzzle and the Hexagonal Key. And that was kind of the way he looked at water, was this puzzle, that he was always trying to figure out. And it was the structure in the water, this hexagonal structure repeating, that created this liquid crystal that he was famous for the whole idea of hexagonal water. It was his term that we
Mm.
use, and we don't know that it was his. But anyway, it was a privilege to work a little bit with him before he passed. And that was my background, that was my introduction to this whole thing. I knew there was something to it, even though our scientists were saying, oh, Water doesn't do that. That's impossible. But, over the years, we've had the concept gradually proven to one degree or another. So anyway, you go with the flow, right?
Right. And
Pardon the pun.
for our audience benefit, what was his name? What's his name? The
His name was Dr. Mushik John.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
And in the beginning, it was spelled as many different ways as you can imagine. And I had no idea who he was, but I sent the company CEO, the company president, who was Korean in this country, marketing a little device. I said, when you go back to Korea, find this guy.
Mm.
And
Mm,
he did. And
cool.
he was interested in having his work published in English. And so that was the beginning.
Well, thank you for your interest in water and having that intuition and following that and continuing to study and learn and write all these books. Your book, Dancing with Water, is really amazing. It's a really great book to read for anybody who wants to know about really water and understand the healing potential that it really has for us because it's huge. So really, really cool. Can you tell us a little bit about like what is structured water? We've talked about it on the show before, but I think it's important to hear your perspective about what structured water is. You have the term like full spectrum water, right? I believe, right? Tell us a little bit about that, exclusion zone water, how you view all of those different terms and if you view them like differently.
Okay, good question. We like to call this, rather than hexagonal water, we like to call it liquid crystalline water.
Yeah, I like that one.
Because in this structure, water forms a repeating pattern, and it's based on hexagonal symmetry, but it's a repeating three-dimensional pattern. And that is the definition of a crystal. The
Mm.
thing is, water moves. And this is why scientists have always said, or previously have said, this is impossible because water's dynamic and the water molecules are always moving. And they are, even in structured water.
Yes.
Except that under certain circumstances, you create a pattern of coherence. And by that term, I'm referring to a physics definition, which is a fixed phase relationship between the molecules. So it's like a school of fish, and they can swim in perfect unison,
Mm,
although they're still individual fish, just like the water molecules individually. They're still individual molecules, but they swim together or they work together in
mhm,
this coherence. And when there's a disturbance in a school of fish, heavens, they'll go all over the place. But they can come back together just like that. That is a coherent system.
mhm,
That kind of, and when you create the energy in water for that to happen, now you've got a liquid crystal that's still dynamic, that still moves, and water's changing partners all the time. But
mhm,
water molecules, individual partners are changing in this dance we refer to.
mhm,
But I mean, that's the basis of the concept. And when you bring coherence in, it changes it. Now, easy water is actually a different little beast. A lot of people call this the gold standard of water. But here's what science does to
mhm,
our investigations sometimes. All the work in the journals about water has been done with distilled water
mm,
because that's the nature of science. We have to
mm,
get something that's repeatable. And when you have other things in the water, like minerals,
mm,
it changes the dynamics a little bit, and it truly does. So easy water is distilled water. It's empty water. That's our term for distilled or RO water. It's empty. But where in nature is there ever empty water? There is not. You may say that when water comes out of the clouds, it's distilled, but it's not. Because the
mhm,
minute it leaves that cloud, it's hungry and it starts to gather things from the air, things from the clouds, little particles that and as soon as it hits the ground, it's gathering the minerals from the soil because water was not designed to be empty. It's hungry when it's empty. So easy water is water that's structured without anything in it. And it can hold that structure when the setup is correct. And you can measure how far out that structure will go. But in order for structured water to develop, in order for this crystalline array to develop, you have to kick out a proton of
Mm-hmm.
every sixth molecule. And
Right.
so that creates a negative charge
Mm-hmm.
in the EZ portion, which stands for exclusion zone. And
Right.
that's Dr. Pollack's term for this water this term that he made famous because he did some beautiful work to substantiate the whole concept,
Mm-hmm.
but it was done with distilled water. So he called structured water distilled water, but here's what happens. In order to create the pattern, you have an area of negative charge, but you've kicked out a proton somewhere, which is causing a positive charge somewhere else. So you
Mm-hmm.
have zones in all structured water. You have zones of EZ, or where the water is excluding everything else. And they can be very tightly structured and very almost immobile because of the charges that are involved there in a very tiny few layers. And Dr. Mushik John talked about X, Y, and Z water, similar to the EZ water that Dr. Pollack kind of identified and gave a name to, because right next to a charged particle, the structure is very strong. So this was X water, according to Dr. Mushik John. Then there was Y water, which was a little less tightly held, and Z water. And then there was bulk water, water that was very mobile. Well, so easy water is exclusion zone. It's got a negative charge. It's very strongly structured. Usually there's only a very, very tiny area where this can actually happen. And when you start to add minerals back into the water, you've got a whole different ball game. But it still can be liquid crystalline water because what happens around the minerals is what happens in easy water. You have a starting place and you develop these areas of tightly structured and less tightly structured. But the minerals in water usually break down into ionic form. And what does that mean? That means they have a charge to them. And now those water molecules, which also have a charge to them, can begin to create layers of easy water around every little mineral, and then the positive charges in between. And so you have domains of water and you can still have structure. In fact, the structure is more intricate when you add the minerals, and
Right.
it is a stronger structure. So in our work, we've determined that salt water in the ocean is one of the most structured waters on the planet because it's very salty, and those minerals, number one, hold the crystalline structure into beautiful arrays that change. It's not just easy water. It's these beautiful arrays that come into being when you add all of these other minerals, and it still develops into a three-dimensional pattern around different. I mean, we tried to illustrate it in a two-dimensional way with a diagram in the book, but there's no way you can illustrate the beauty of this until you start looking at things like Dr. Emoto looked at, and most of your audience will be familiar with his work. You know, he showed that water that was energetically alive would form quickly into a crystalline array, but no crystal, like no snowflake, is ever the same because
Mm-mm.
every moment in time, water's got different energies moving through it. And so those crystals are dynamic. And they are dependent on the minerals in the water and the energies and frequencies and all of that kind of thing. So The new sciences do show that that water will form repeatable patterns to a degree, but because we're never in the same place seasonally within the
Mm.
cosmos, water will never form the same crystal ever again the same way. And that's the beauty of it. So, there you go. We don't consider easy water to be any kind of a standard, but it's a part of the whole picture, and you have to understand the concept and how that
Right.
develops. And so Dr. Pollock did us all a huge favor
Mm.
by helping us understand how this all happens with the charges in water, and he did some beautiful, simple science. And then, Melanie and I chose to adopt this term that you referred to, full spectrum living water, because minerals not only help to hold the structure of the water, they actually anchor the life force in water.
Mhm.
And without the minerals, the life force is very minimal. And we've had people take Kirlian pictures of a drop of water distilled and with minerals and structured and all of these different things. The distilled water, you can hardly find the light in it. You cannot find the light in it. So it's empty and it's devoid of information.
Can you ever bring distilled water back to life, or is that not possible?
Yes, you
You
can, but
when it
it's much
revived and you
more,
structured it, but
it's
it still,
harder than just adding those minerals.
yeah,
You need to work with it a little bit, and it needs some time. And reverse osmosis water is even worse.
yeah. You just like
Melanie calls it
That's what
murder.
most people use for filtering, though. So that's really scary. And that's why off camera, I wanted to ask you about what do you do? Because I just put in an RO system a while back, but I have a structuring device. But anyway, then I start to get worried like, uh-oh, people all think they have to RO their water because that's the gold standard. Actually, you're saying that's really gives you such a bad quality of water.
And we've had other people, other water researchers on here who said the exact same thing. It really, you're like killing the water, and you're like still holding the energy. What they were saying is like you're still holding the energy and frequency of, say, said whatever, right? Even though, say, you took out the birth control or you took out, say, I don't know, the viruses or the pathogens, it's still holding an energy and like the energy is still there of it.
Actually, I think the reverse osmosis process probably rids the energetic,
You
you
think
know,
so?
negativity too, because what happens in the RO process, we liken it to the homogenization of milk.
Yeah, that's a really great example. That's a really great analogy. Perfect.
Because you have, in order to break up those fat particles in the milk and homogenize it, you have to you separate everything apart. And And then when you put the cream back in the milk, does it float to the top again? No, it doesn't. It can never come back in the same way. You can add, and so people think they can add those minerals back in, but it is not that easy and it doesn't come back the same way, just like with the homogenization of milk. It
Mhm.
changes it. It strips every water molecule from every other water molecule. And that's the network that gives it life. And so,
And then gives us life because we're 99% water, 99.9 water by molecular structure, right? So
right.
yeah,
So anyway, we're not fans of RO water. You
no,
can
me
bring
neither.
distilled water back a lot easier than you can bring RO water back. So distillation is not nearly as so destructive for water.
That's
But
good to know.
it's nice if you can leave the minerals in water and leave the water in stillness. That's another concept we should talk about later on, and it's something that we brought in. We think
Mhm.
was entirely new to the discussion of water and structuring. And
Yeah.
I'll talk
Absolutely.
about that wherever you want me to.
I'd love to talk about what you recommend instead of RO and then stillness. And then, but let's talk about geometry and how geometry is related to water. And you touch on that in your book.
Geometry is this beautiful subject. Every time Melanie and I wrote another chapter in the book, we would go down this deep dive and find people who had, corroborating research from other fields that would substantiate the kinds of things we were happening and so that we were discovering. Um, we read There's a fellow by the name of Dan Davidson, and he wrote a book a long time ago, just a simple book called Shape Power, I think is what it was called. And he talked about the energy of shape and the influence of shapes. And so why were those pyramids built in the first place? What is it about that
Mhm.
tetrahedron structure? Well, come to find out, that focuses energy. It
Mhm.
serves as a wave guide, and it focuses energy and sends it out the peak and also out the corners. And anytime you have an angle, the energy will focus into that point. And that's what's going on in a crystal too. The energy
Mm.
is focused out that point. And so there is energy in a crystal and you can direct that energy. Well, so he talked about all these different shapes. And then we got into Victor Schauberger's work, and
Mm.
we discovered his work with the shape of an egg.
Mm.
Ah, yeah, yeah.
And we fell in love with that, but we also realized that most of the people who were trying to replicate his work were doing it upside down.
Oh, I remember reading about that in your book. Yeah.
So when you have a point on anything, that's where the energy goes, right? And if you have the shape of the egg facing downward, that's where the energy is directed. And
Mm.
so what we found was that the energy was always leaving if you put it downward. And so if you make water in the shape of an egg that's got that point facing downward towards the earth, the energy is always leaving and going into the earth. However, that has a great role to play if you want to do a detox program,
Mm.
because it makes great detox water. And the plant kingdom seems to really love that kind of water because the energy is going into the earth,
Right.
where those plants are. So shape is very powerful. And mandalas that include the platonic solids,
Mhm.
the basic shapes of the universe,
Mm.
those are very powerful. And water will form some of those shapes in its own structural configurations as it works its way around minerals. And so you're not stuck with just the hexagonal. There are other structures that come into play in water as well. And I think we've yet to really be able to look into this, but
Mm.
um, geometry has a huge effect on water.
Mm.
And so, Melanie and I decided to develop this container. We call it our water cradle, and it's based on the shape of the egg, only we set it so that the rounded portion was down, and it creates what we've called yin water as opposed to yang water that's
Mm.
always taking, the energy is always leaving. Anyway, um,
Well,
we
that
put a
egg, you're
lot of things together besides the power of the shape, because I'm going to explain this. Sorry for going on, but you need to
it's okay.
understand what's going on in the shape of an egg. The
Yeah.
shape of an egg is a repeating pattern, and
Mhm.
that's the golden ratio spiral. You've probably
Oh,
come across this
oh
concept
yeah.
too.
Yes, we have.
There is a spiral that follows golden ratio proportion, and it
Mm,
is found everywhere in nature.
hmm.
All of our seashells replicate this pattern. The
Yes.
galaxies replicate this pattern. Your DNA is a spiral with this kind of geometry to a certain extent. It's everywhere in the pattern of seeds. You're going to find that water will spiral in this specific spiral. Well, what is the shape of an egg? It is a golden ratio spiral from about as many angles as you can imagine. And what does that golden ratio spiral do? It gathers energy.
Mm,
Mm.
So you've got a vessel now in the shape of an egg. And this was all discovered by Victor. I'm going to give him full credit for this.
mhm.
Mm-hmm.
The shape of the egg is always gathering energy.
Wow.
And so when you put water in it, you've got a vehicle that's now gathering energy all the time. And you better be careful what kind of energy it's gathering.
I was gonna say it's a conduit for energy and information, and so are we. So that's the same thing. Like we always have to be kind of like What you're consuming matters, in so many ways, and not just in food. And we had, I just want to remind our listeners, we talked about we have a homeopath on here who talked about, she made a remedy out of the golden spiral, actually. So she has this homeopathic remedy called the golden spiral, which is relating to that conversation.
Very lovely. I'd like to check into that.
Yeah, go out back and check that one out. That would be really cool. But also the egg is like the spark of life, right? That's where life comes from. So that also is really
Yeah,
symbolic.
we call it nature's gestation vessel
Yeah.
because
I love that.
that's what gestation is. It's a gathering of energy. The womb is shaped somewhat like an egg too.
Yeah. So
So
cool.
you have this geometry that is really ideal for water as far as gathering energy.
So that cradle for our listeners would structure the water for you. Putting your water
Yes.
into that cradle. That would
But
structure.
it does it very slow. It does it a lot slower than spinning in a magnetic field and some other ways that are out there. There's 1,000 ways to structure water, and that's one of the reasons we wrote the book. It
Yeah.
doesn't have to be hard, and it doesn't have to cost $1,000. There
That's
are
good.
things you can do that you've already got in your home that
Yeah.
will help you, structure the water. And
Do
we
you
just
want to
use it.
share a few of those just for our listeners?
But you know what? If you put some magnets around a pitcher, especially if it's got a nice ovoid shape to it,
Hmm.
and stir it,
There you
Yeah.
go.
you're creating a vortex within a magnetic field.
Simple.
And then when you've heard probably of biodynamics,
Oh yeah.
they would stir the water and they would sing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They
You're
were
yeah.
consciously involved in this process. So now, if you stir the water with your intention
Yeah.
to create water for you and your needs of the day, you have created amazing water that no device that anybody can give you will do because you're involved in the process of it. And that's kind of where Melanie and I would like to project ourselves into the future, is helping people understand that.
I love that because we're always looking for the device. We're always looking for the thing. And you're like, just
Yep.
hey, like stand outside at sunrise with your feet on the ground with your water and have some intention and swirl it. You're doing a lot of really good there as well. Like it can be, we make things so complicated, but they can be really so simple. And that the ritual and the relationship with the water, I think, is what really is the magic to me.
You said it better than I could ever. That's absolutely correct. Your relationship with it during the process is what makes it and takes it to the highest level. And, those are the kinds of things that we are stepping back into as a human race. We're learning who we are and how powerful we are. And people don't give credit to the fact that that works, but oh yes, it does. We're just not tuned into it. And as we tune into it, there's where the fun begins. So, perfect explanation for it, Vanessa.
Oh, thanks. Yeah.
I feel like an hour is woefully inadequate to cover this topic in any sort of, meaningful. It's like we need so much time because I want to talk about Electrum Ormus, and then that involves Wata. So there's so much to talk about here, but I really want to, because thank you so much for sending us this, MJ.
Yes.
Sent
Thank
us
you.
a gift for our listeners. We've been using Electrum Ormus. It's her new product offering, I should say, and it's brilliant. So tell us about it.
Well, you know what I'd love to hear, and you guys think about this while I talk about how we developed it or what was behind the concept, is I'd like to hear your experience if you
Mhm.
have any, because it is a subtle formula,
Yeah.
but you guys, as homeopaths, understand where subtle comes into play. So, in our work with water and in the third chapter of the book, we talk about vortices.
Mhm.
Well, Ormus came up because it's a spinning atom or small cluster of atoms. And what happens when atoms spin like this is they enter a very high frequency state and they become inert. In other words, they have no interest in combining with any other elements because they're spinning so fast. And that spin causes them to lose a little bit of weight. And it turns out that ormus and water, we call them in an article we have online, perfect and playful partners.
Mm.
Because if you put these ormus elements in water, they will find the little tiny cages that are created in the structure of the water. And
Can I pause you 1 second just so our listeners can follow? The ormness is a certain type of mineral, correct?
yes,
Yes. Okay. I just want
I
to be
kind of got, let me back up for
I
your
want to be
audience.
sure so we can just follow it. Yeah.
It's hard to jump in the middle of a subject, but way back in the 1990s, there was a fellow by the name of David Hudson, and he was doing some work with gold,
Yeah.
and he found this element that nobody could give a name to, and it was
Hmm.
a white powder, and it happened on his property. And as he looked into it, this is how he discovered the whole concept of ormus, was
Mm.
because they couldn't identify the element, and come to find out it was gold in its
Mhm.
high spin state.
Mhm.
And so he did a lot of work with going back into ancient manuscripts and that kind of thing, and discovering that there was some interesting references to using gold in this way, and they called it mana, and
Mm.
it had some very interesting properties. And so as he got into this, he discovered the power of gold, and people who started to put gold in their water and drink this water didn't know what they were playing with in the beginning, and some of them kind of got into trouble because the higher states of consciousness that it took them to, they weren't prepared for, and
Yeah.
they jumped in too deep, and some of them kind of went off track. And so, it's got an interesting history, but this is Ormus, and they have been ended up discovering that there were about 8 elements originally that were called the original Ormus elements in a certain area of the periodic table, that because of their electron configurations, they could go into this high spin state. And in this high spin state, their electrons in that outer electron shell that would normally bond with other atoms
Mhm.
didn't want to anymore because they bonded with themselves.
Mm.
So this little Ormus particle becomes a spinning particle of light,
Mm.
really. And its characteristics and properties completely change. And so there were new elements that, I mean, if we wanted to look at it that way, you can call it platinum, you can call it platinum ormus, or you can just plain admit that it's something different, when it's in this high spin state. So when we talk about ormus, we're talking about something in a very high spin state. And some of the most potent elements are gold, silver, and platinum
Right.
in the Ormus state that we can actually play with. There are others that have some potencies. I'm sure we don't fully even understand at this point in time. But we had an Ormus product out there, and it was like a lot of other Ormus products out there. It had some wonderful qualities about it, but we wanted to focus on the ones that were really potent and the ones that would really help humanity. And that was kind of our aim. So what do we need right now? We need stability. We need to help with some help moving into some higher frequencies, because we
Mhm.
are in a different place in this galaxy, and it is resonating at a higher frequency, and we have to make the adjustment. And so we are shaking and rocking on this planet and the planet itself, because we have to make this shift, and it's all good, but it's not easy sometimes. So what can we provide for people that will help us hold a high vibration, because we still have a lot of very ugly lower vibrations that exist on this planet that we're trying to work our way out of, let's just say, and remove from the planet. But that's our work for the next few years. So, Melanie and I said, what can we come up with that will be a very high vibration that will help people subtly without knocking them over with, what the gold and some of these other elements can do? And we ran across this term electrum. An electrum refers to an ancient kind of an alchemy where gold and silver, anyway, and sometimes other metals in the ore were refined. And through this refinement process, they created anciently some kind of an elixir.
Mm,
So that was our goal, and we were at it for, I don't know, we played with it on and off as we could for actually several years. And then, we came up with this frequency-based Ormus product that we call Electrum Ormus. And it's used differently. Most Ormus is put in water and drunk, but
mm,
this was actually better to use on your energy field.
mm,
And so and ultimately even more potent when it was breathed. So we
Mm,
mm,
made it and designed it to be used as a spray, and it's the first Ormus designed to be used as a spray. And
mhm,
it's, our intention was to offer people something that would help them hold their vibration, that would help them release some old things that we
mm,
still carry and that are kind of hard sometimes to release. And this isn't going to happen right away. But as
mhm,
soon as you begin resonating at a higher frequency, your body's not holding on to this old stuff anymore. And you'll have a chance for it to bubble up and let go of traumas,
mhm.
old beliefs, all these old patterns, old ways of thinking. I was just thinking about the interview this morning as I was grounding, and I thought, now I've lost my train of thought. That happens.
It's okay.
Anyway, I don't know where I was going with that, but we'll find it later on.
Yeah, when it's meant to come back out, it will. It's pretty incredible. It sounds really awesome. Yeah. Yeah.
well, I have found it to be very helpful for me because I'm just in a new space, a new place, literally physically, new space and living space, and just a lot of different new energy. And so there's a lot of transition, outside change, and then there's a lot of inside change. So I have found the Ormus to be helpful in stabilizing me, grounding me, and just being open to receiving whatever goodness is meant for me instead of getting stuck in like, the struggle of the survival mode and all of that. Like I gotta do something, I'm just trying to be calm. And that leads me to stillness. Like I have to be still in order to tune into what it is that's meant for me and get that intuition going, tap into it to know where to move. So, because my whole life it was like, I gotta think about it and I gotta make a plan and I gotta do the steps and da da da. So I'm trying to just like let go of all that. So this product has been very supportive for me. I want to thank you again, MJ.
That's really lovely to hear because that was, that's been a part of the intention behind it. And I guess another intention is we realized that people really, because of everything that was going on and the shifts and people are really struggling with anxiety and
Mhm.
depression. And gold in the homeopathic community, is
Oh
no.
yeah, for depression, that is Aurum is the hugest. And they are like these are like your super perfectionistic, super, super, super high achiever people who just honestly, when they fail at something, they can't handle it and they go down. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So, that was another big thing that we were kind of focusing on as a formula that would help anxiety and
Hmm.
it's not like the drugs out there. It doesn't
Hmm.
completely numb you. It just brings the reality of it in. And I love what you said, Heather, that um, we're all trying to just go with the flow and discover who we are. And
Hmm.
it's good to be prepared for something. But as I sat out there, and here's my thought. I thought of us as fleas in a jar. Humanity has been fleas in a jar for centuries,
Hmm.
thousands of years, really. And the lid just got taken off. And now we have to discover who we are. And so, how do we break out of these old patterns? We intended this formula to be a help, to just
Hmm.
help us break out and realize there is something, I can jump higher than that lid was, and I'm capable of so much more. And we just have to be able to first believe it. And
Yeah.
that's where
Oh,
the
that.
beliefs have to change. And so, this was designed for that purpose too. So, thank you for sharing your experience. And I'll get you some more, Heather.
Oh,
Oh,
wow. Thank
that's
you.
so generous of you. I haven't tried it yet, if I'm being honest with you, because I'm very much a kind of person who like needs to do like one thing at a time. I don't like to put a lot of different like things in my body. So it's like it wasn't the right time yet to use it. And I know when I will be, I'll be excited to use it. So I'm excited to have it for that time. But yeah, I appreciate it very much.
Okay, well, very good. Let us know when you get ready. And
We,
that's, we honor you for honoring your
yeah.
circumstances because that's a part of
Yeah,
every
I very
one of
much
us is different.
yeah, I have to move towards like what I feel like I need to do. Like I'm very like resonant with things and I'm like, okay, this is put it on my shelf and I'm going to use it eventually and it's going to be something I'm going to resonate with when it's time, but it didn't feel right yet. And sometimes I know for myself, and this is just good to share for all listeners like who are on a healing journey. Whenever I've tried to like force my body to do something in some way, like I'm like, oh, I really should be drinking this hydrogen water. This actually just happened to me. And it didn't go well for my body. Like I should be able to tolerate it. I should be able to use it. And I was trying to force it on my body. My body was like, no, 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 we don't like this. It doesn't go well. So it's very important to tune in and listen and not be forcing things. So that's a really good question I wanted to ask you about. Like what do you think about like you have the water, right? I know that you're invested. Is there a difference between that and drinking like say you had structured water, which you've also added hydrogen to? Is there a difference there between those two things? I wanted to get your
That is a great question. I don't think that the question has ever been asked of me before, but it's something that we have looked into. So
well,
good on you. And your experience is a perfect introduction to that, Vanessa, because you jumped into hydrogen-rich water and it didn't go well.
mm-mm,
That's because it is a therapeutic water. It's like this whole distilled water concept. It has a purpose. There's a place for it. It's good for detox, but it's not good for regular drinking. Well, hydrogen-rich water is kind of similar. It's
mm-mm,
a great therapeutic water, but maybe not necessarily to jump into like that because it's still imbalanced.
Mm.
mm-mm.
Water is made of oxygen and hydrogen,
Right,
and
they're
you're
bonded
taking,
together, right? They're bonded.
yeah.
Yeah.
When they come together, they make an entirely new thing, right? The two gases become a liquid. Well, hydrogen-rich water is a therapeutic water. It is great. And if you're an athlete and you're in that kind of condition, that might be something that you could drink a lot of. But we always recommend take it easy, take it slow, introduce things one at a time.
Hmm.
And when we found Wata, we quit drinking hydrogen-rich water because Wata is balanced and it gives you hydrogen and oxygen in an activated form. We've talked about Ormus, and Wata is an Ormus water.
Oh.
It's been infused with an Ormus gas that is not in the science books. They called it ditetra gas because it's made of two water molecules that are spinning together in an Ormus state. And when this gas is infused in water, this water is stable, it's crystalline, even
Mm.
without minerals. It's a beautiful water. We drank it without minerals for a while.
Mm.
We started adding minerals to it, and that amped up its energy even more from our perspective.
So that water would not have any minerals in it, the water?
So
It has
the
none.
Wata is completely purified water,
Okay.
but it's in a high spin state, and
Mm.
the body loves it. And it is
It's interesting to me. I'm not sorry, it brought up a question when you said that you were able to drink the water without minerals because usually when you're drinking waters without minerals, it doesn't really have a hydrating effect typically. But this was different.
well, this water defies all the science that we have currently gathered together. And we have an article on the website. I would encourage your group to read it if they're interested,
Yeah.
where we talk about all the ways that this water just broke the pattern. It doesn't fit. It it wouldn't follow any of the rules. And we talk about some of those rules that are broken in water and some of the things that were discovered as this product was being patented. They had to prove certain things and they had to show certain things in order to be able to make some of the claims. And, you know, I think we were the ones who told them this water was Ormus.
Mm.
And they started to use that in their, even on their bottle label.
So
So
this isn't a water that you discovered or created. It's a water that you came
we
across.
found,
You found it. It came to you, and now you vet it basically.
yeah. And so in the process of figuring out why this was so amazing, we had to look into it and read their patent documents and get into it. And, we've become good friends with the producers of this water, some beautiful people who are just following their guidance.
Mm.
They're making this available. It's very expensive to produce. The worst cost in it is shipping. You got
Yeah,
to ship it in
water.
plastic. It doesn't go in glass. There's one of the rules it breaks.
Yes, that kind of breaks my heart because I drink out of everything in glass. But you could take that water, like I have Blue Bottle Love, which is the bottles that I use, and just pour it right into a glass bottle and then drink out of that. I mean,
You can pour it in and it's not going to be harmed in a few minutes in glass, but you
right.
don't want to store it in glass. You don't want to leave it for days and days.
Okay.
In fact, the way that we discovered that and our discovery of the fact that we call it Ormus. I don't have any science to prove that, but it follows all the rules of what we know about what Ormus is. The first thing we always do with a new water is get it in our water cradle.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
And there, the water cradle has more to it than I've been able to go into just talking about its geometry, but there's more to it than that. Anyway, we put the wata in the water cradle to see if we could amp it up even further. And after a couple of days, Melanie said, something wrong with this water. I said, what do you mean? And she goes, it's pulling stuff out of the ceramic. And I
Uh,
said, well, that's not possible. That ceramic's vitrified. So once again, breaking all the rules. But Ormus
mm,
will tunnel
Mm-hmm.
and it will find these tiny places to go. And so that has been proven that Ormus will tunnel. It will tunnel through glass. And we found that it was tunneling through the ceramic. And after a couple of days, there were things in that ceramic that the water would never be exposed to under normal circumstances.
uh.
So you don't put this water in there anymore,
No,
obviously.
you keep it in plastic.
So
Wow.
plastic it doesn't have any interaction with?
It's inert in plastic.
Okay.
That pretty much people who
Hmm.
understand Ormus will ship their product in plastic.
Okay, that's so interesting. But if you poured it into a glass container and you drank it right away, it'd be fine. I'm just
Yeah,
trying.
that'd be fine. And
But
I've done
but
that.
if you left it, like say like I don't drink the water fast. If you left it, that wouldn't be fine. I'm just trying to.
One day is not going to hurt it.
Okay,
We were okay. It was going into that second
that's
day
fine.
after about 24 to 36 hours that we noticed the
Okay, about
effects of
24.
that. I say we, but this is Melanie. She's the intuitive. She's the one who picked it up. And then we knew.
Hmm,
So
so interesting. Yeah.
yeah, Wata is this very beautiful water, and we made the electromorphous in it because it holds the frequency. This is the other interesting
And
thing.
now I'm really curious as a homeopath, like if I use that water with homeopathy, what would that effect be?
We started by doing some things like that, making our own little homeopathic frequency-based formulas.
Mhm.
Here's the deal with water. You can have a glass of water, and put something next to it, and the water will imprint that energy. It will easily go into this. When we did that with Wata, the energy didn't go into the water.
Oh.
It has such a strong energy field that it would not pick up the energy from outside.
So then what is that doing in the body is my question. It's not allowing, like, would it,
Well, the body knows how to break this
is
down.
it protective? I don't know. Like me, I'm just questioning and
Well,
thinking.
that's really a good question. It's really good. But the
Yeah,
body is going to get the energy out of this water
yeah,
because water holds both hydrogen and oxygen in a high energy state.
right.
And that means that both hydrogen and oxygen are going to be more efficient, more active in your body, more able to do what both of them do. And so the Wata people have kind of focused on what's going on in the mitochondria because it does improve the production of ATP. And
Mm,
people do get more energy, drinking
yeah.
this water. But way beyond that, I think we don't even know, Vanessa,
Yeah.
other than the body is harvesting the energy from these high spin hydrogen, and
So that water would already be structured. You would have to do nothing to it besides maybe put some
correct,
minerals in it. So maybe you'd
correct.
want to put a little salt or a squirt of lemon, whatever works for you. What kind
Yes.
of minerals do you like to use? I'm just curious about that. Do you like salt, like sea salt? Do you like a squeeze of lemon? Do you like to use a certain formula? I'm just came up.
We use this, we have this chapter on salts, and
Hmm.
the best blends are coming out of the ocean
Yes.
because that's the natural blend. And actually the ocean echoes, we echo the ocean's mineral blend in proportion. We have the same proportion of those minerals as the ocean does. So the salts are very good for that, but there's still a variety of them. And so, we gathered a few salts from across the globe and put them together in a blend that we make available for people. But there are all kinds of good things. The Himalayan salt is good. Natural unprocessed salts.
Yeah.
And there's one that we found that we're looking into, and we may do some further development with this formula, all things in time. There's a beautiful salt from Peru.
Mm,
It's called Sacred Valley. If
Mm.
you're really interested in a very high frequency salt, this salt water comes out of the mountains.
mm,
And they're at a very high location, high elevation. And the whole community is involved and owns different salt ponds. So when you see a picture of this community, you just see layers and layers of salt ponds around this mountain. And that is their livelihood.
wow.
They harvest this beautiful salt, and it's a very high energy salt. So if anybody's interested in playing with that, I would highly recommend the Sacred Valley salt. Very beautiful. I mean, there are some lovely salts out there, but yes, salt will balance the water with the minerals that you need, and you have to still watch your body because you use some minerals in a greater degree than somebody else does. Your body is completely unique, and you got to focus because I still take minerals. I said I have some adrenal issues, and
Yeah.
adrenals are key. I mean, excuse me,
Yeah, my
minerals
body
are key.
also does not love a ton of salt. In fact, I don't put any, I drink a spring water. I don't even add salt, but anytime I do put minerals in my water and I do put, especially if I put too many, I notice negative effects. Like I don't tolerate
Same with Melanie. See, I can almost put as much salt in the water as I want
Me
because I
too.
just go through it.
My
But
body does
Melanie
not
cannot.
focus.
She does. She's just very few. So we're all different, and we all have to pay attention to our bodies. You
Right.
follow your needs.
Yeah, that's why we can't just put up blanket protocols and be like, you need to do this,
Oh,
this, and this, and this, because everybody is different. And, working with people over the years and even with myself, you learn that, and yeah, it's really, really important to like tune in and pay attention. And I know a lot of people just want the protocol and what to do, but
right. We're done with that.
yeah, you have to
People ask
tune
us
in.
all questions. This is what I do. This and this and this and this. I just say, you know what? That's all good. There's no magic to this. There's no magic formula. In the end, follow your guidance.
Yes.
Follow your guidance. You have the background. That's what the book does, is it says, look,
Yeah.
these are the factors that nature uses. Use whatever of them you can because they all work. Start
Yeah.
playing with it. Put some together.
Mhm.
Play with it. It's a dance.
Oh, I love that because play is one of my favorite things. Your book title is Dancing with Water. It's almost like water is the consciousness guide. In order to really learn about yourself, right, and grow, you're learning about water, but it's really teaching you about you. So I look at it as a mirror because that's what you're describing, MJ.
Oh, that's a lovely,
I
again,
know. That was
Heather,
beautiful.
you've nailed it. That's perfect. Absolutely right.
So
Yeah.
let's talk about stillness in that process.
Oh, thank you for bringing that up. Because there's more to the water cradle than just what I've talked about in its shape. And we gathered a bunch of things together to support the water as the water is gestating in this beautiful shape. One thing we discovered, we were doing some research for another company who had a product, and they wanted some kind of scientific validation These are things that are hard to find, but um, we and we talk about this in the book, gas discharge visualization. It's a type of Kirlian photography, and it also measures the energy in water. And so you get a feel for, is the water losing energy, or is the water building energy, or is it stable? That all of this data comes out of the measurement of the water. And so, we just asked them to run the water through this device, let it sit overnight, so we could not measure what happens immediately, but how the water holds the energy. We wanted that. So we said, just leave it alone for 24 hours. And then we want you to have somebody drink it and test them before and after. So we had this kind of thing going on. Well, the fellow who was doing the testing got back to me after the whole process, and he said, we discovered something really interesting. He said, we structured your water in this device, and just for the heck of it, we tested the energy right then. And then we tested the energy before we gave it to somebody. And after sitting overnight, it had built up energy. Well,
In
this
this time.
defies all the laws of physics, because
Yeah.
everything is supposed to be, in a state of entropy on this planet. Of course, it's
Mm.
not. Well, in this case, so Melanie, that was our clue. And I said, Melanie, we need to look at this, because there's something going on here we need to understand. And it was the stillness.
Oh.
It was the water sitting in stillness that
Mm.
completed this process or took it to another level.
And
And
that's
as
so,
we look,
sorry, that's so interesting because people always say you want to keep water moving. It likes to be in flow. It likes to be moving. Like it is like, say, on a mountain. It's flowing, it's moving, it's vortexing. And so that's kind of like, I'm surprised to hear that, but it's interesting and cool.
so many dynamics to this. So let me see if I can address them. Make sure I address them all for you, Vanessa, before we get done, because
Right.
that's all true. The
Yeah.
first part of the structuring process involves movement. Why? Because that generates life force.
Yes.
It also releases old energy so that water can incorporate new energy.
Mhm.
And water in motion is cleaning because it's bringing in oxygen and all of that. And nature does all of that.
Mhm.
But think of the flow of a river. There are eddies where the water just sits and circulates. It
Mm.
just sits and gently circulates, and you don't see it moving. It
Mm.
sits. And then there are areas of rapids and fast movement, and
Mm.
it's all a part of the process. So the movement without the stillness is incomplete.
Mm.
Yeah.
And that's what we found. However, when the water's in stillness, it cannot be exposed to light, because that is
Mm.
energy degrading for water. So if water sits in stillness, stagnant in the sunlight, that's when you get bacteria, that's when you get trouble, and that's when water's energy is stolen, if it sits in the sunlight while it's not moving.
That is really a great takeaway. So if people wanted to help use sunlight energy to structure their water, I always would say to do it in the morning, not in high intensity, like afternoon.
That's right. You're following your guidance.
Right.
Absolutely.
But also now it makes me think, oh, you'd want to actually be moving it in that process somehow
And
too.
you can let it sit for a few minutes, but honestly, more than 10 or 15 minutes in full sun, and the
Too
water
much.
starts to get tired, just like you.
Yeah.
When the energy is intense,
Yeah.
that morning sunlight is wonderful and beautiful. But after a while, it gets to be very draining, and that's exactly what happens to water. So one
Yeah.
of the reasons we made the water cradle out of ceramic was because we could keep it in darkness.
Mm.
Mm.
So that stillness needs to be in darkness.
Yes.
And that's a factor that we incorporated here. So we have the darkness, the stillness, the shape, and then we surrounded the water cradle with protection so
Mm.
that it wouldn't pick up
Yeah.
arguments in the room,
Oh, I love that.
fluorescent lights,
Yeah.
cell
Yeah.
phones. We still
But we
keep our
do need
cell
to
phones
protect
away.
our water. Like we do need to protect our water from
Yeah,
Wi-Fi and Bluetooth and negative energy and arguments and artificial light because it's picking up on everything, just like we are picking up on everything. So
right.
we do need to do that, and I love that. And it's like also with this water storage, like once you have your water stored, I do tell people cool, dark, places is the best places to store. Is
Yes.
that correct?
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Water loves coolness. And these are the factors that are involved. Because it's in ceramic, there is
Mhm.
a certain degree of evaporative cooling that's going on. So the water is cooler in ceramic than it will be in glass.
Okay.
So you're keeping the water cool, you're keeping it dark, you're keeping it energized and structured, and you're protecting it. We've got an orgone base and a tensor ring. And those are other ways to protect the water from outside interference. And those pieces to the water cradle kind of complete it and allow you to make really lovely water. And the longer it sits, the better it gets. Up to 3 or 4 days. If you forget it, quit paying attention to it, the water loses your intention and starts to just, whatever. So water needs your attention. Water needs your love. Water needs your, all of
Yeah.
what your guys are doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And everything you're saying, it like just makes me so feel like we are nature. We are just like the water's just like us, right? We need the movement, we need the stillness, we need the light, we need the dark, we need the
That's
heat, we
right.
need the cold. Like it's just a yin and a yang, and it's just a balance. And it's like finding the right balance that works for you and your water that you're drinking, right? It's just
Yeah.
really
So
beautiful.
we'll spin the water first because
Yeah.
that jump starts the process. If you just put water in the water cradle, it will structure itself. It will take a little bit longer, but if you structure it first, if you spin it first, if you do some other things first, then put it in, within several minutes, we can note the changes in the water, but we say leave it at least 3 hours. And
Mm,
overnight is even better. It's quiet,
mm.
it's still, it's perfect darkness,
I guess
you know.
depending on your environment, but yeah.
Yeah, right. Okay.
MJ, I want to come back to this about what you do instead of reverse osmosis. And you have a water, I don't remember the name of it, but it's like a filtration or to help us understand about that product.
Hmm.
For a long time, Melanie and I stayed out of this whole filtration thing because there's just 1,000 different filters out there. And everybody has different filtration needs depending on their water,
Correct.
how
That's the
bad it
starting
is,
point.
what part of the country it comes from, and what they've put in it during treatment processes, if that's what, they have to deal with. So we kind of stayed out of that and just told people to filter it to the best of their ability and to work with their local people. But we always used a gravity filter,
Mm,
and we've used many different kinds over the years. Gravity filtration mimics nature. You
Mm,
pour water through, it goes through the filter, the negative stuff is held onto by the filter. You have to replace the filter periodically. And then you get clean water that isn't devoid of minerals because filters will take out contaminants, but they won't generally take out the smaller particles, which are just the lone minerals. And one of the things that pushed us into this was we were having a hard time finding decent filters for our gravity system. A lot of these are interchangeable that are out there, but the filters were lacking quality and they were getting worse. And so we were having to change filters every 4 months. Melanie's filtering Idaho Falls water, which is not great water. And I'm filtering well water, which is fairly good water, but still, I'm in an agricultural community and I have to take out some contaminants.
mm.
Anyway, we purchased all these different kinds of filters and evaluated them for our gravity filtration system, and we just weren't happy. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, well, I can't remember. It was an advertisement. I saw this device. It's a gravity water filter made with a glass tank. It's glass.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and both Melanie and I had a water filter, gravity filter that had a glass tank that we'd gotten years ago when one company did a short introduction of glass, and nobody was able to duplicate that, so everybody was stuck with plastic. And this was made of glass and it was beautiful. And I said, Melanie, I think we better look at this. And so we bought one. And Melanie tried it first because she can pick up more than I can as far as, her level of sensitivity. And she said, MJ, this is a good water filter. She goes, it's taking out everything that I need to get out of my water and it's doing a good job. She goes, I love this water. So I bought one and we played around with them for several months. And the beauty of a gravity water filter is that the water sits in a tank and then it's dispensed by a spigot. And so in that tank, you can do all kinds of things to embellish the water and add your energetics and begin the structuring process.
Mm.
And so we played with all kinds of different things in there. And we finally decided we couldn't actually bring this product in. It wasn't feasible for us. It's too big, it's too costly. We don't have the space to keep that kind of thing in our small store area, warehouse, whatever you want to. But the group gave us a nice discount and I said, what we want to do is we want to put this on our store, but we won't sell it. We'll direct them to you. We'll endorse it. We'll, you know, we'll support you and as long as you'll offer people a discount for us. And
Mm.
so that's the arrangement we came up with. And
Nice.
when you see it on our website, it's there, but you can't order it from us. You have to
Oh,
order it from
okay.
them.
Yeah.
But you can use a code and get a good 15% discount. So,
That's
and
cool.
of course, we get a little kickback. Let's put that right out front there too. We get a
Well,
little
that's good.
kickback too. So we love them because the filters last a long time.
Yeah.
It's cleaning even municipal water. It's getting all the stuff we are concerned about, including, the forever chemicals they call the PFAS
Mm.
stuff. It does take out fluoride. The filters need to be cleaned. They need to be scrubbed. I was made a believer on that. I didn't think that that was really going to help that much, but it does. And
Wow.
if you take care of the filter, that's what Melanie and I are using right now. So I have sediment filters on my water that come into my home, and I have structuring devices on the water that come into my home. And I do that all. I've got tensor rings on my incoming water line. I've got magnets on it. I've got shungite. I've got paramagnet. You know, all of it that just amps up the energy. So the water coming into my home is good, but it's not cleanly filtered until, and so my process includes one more step, and that's ozone. I have a
Mm.
little ozonator that's for water, and I use it when I come home from the grocery store too. I just fill up the sink with water and put this little ozonator aerator in there, and so that cleans the surface area of all my vegetables before I put them in the fridge. It also helps their longevity in the fridge. And
Mhm.
it's not just used for water, but I ozonate 5 gallons of my well water at a time, and I have a cycle that I go through before it goes in the filter. That's my process. But this is working for people. This filter seems to be working really nicely for the
Mm.
circumstances of our day, and that could
Mhm.
change. Who knows? We hope soon things will begin to change on this planet, and we'll, step up to the bar when it comes these kinds of issues. But for the meantime, it's not that expensive, so people can afford it, and it's not RO,
Right.
Hmm.
which
Hmm.
is not good.
I think it's
Yeah.
a great option. I would definitely want to look into it. And
Yeah, me too.
so, but I
It's
love,
pretty. You got to cover it because it's
oh, okay.
glass. So I made a cover for mine, and so did
Okay.
Melanie.
Nice.
So you
Nice.
don't want it to sit in the direct sun, and water that, natural water, especially that sits in the direct sun, will also start to build, algae.
Yeah.
Water has microbes, and they're not all bad.
Right. Right.
Microbes are
I want
good.
them in there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we want microbes. I think that's
I
a
want microbes in there if they're the
yeah, it's a
right
whole
ones.
different reframe. People think microbes are bad. I'm like, no, I want to put my hands in the dirt and touch the worm and be barefoot.
Oh man, that's when I'm in
To me,
heaven.
it's like when people say, when somebody says to me they're like afraid of parasites for walking barefoot, I'm like, to me, it like makes no sense. I'm like, you want to be interacting with those microbes in your environment and you want your body to have enough, I would say enough adequate exclusion zone water, but I think you like me made me reframe that a little bit to like remove what's not serving you. So yeah, like you should be
Yeah,
able,
animals roll in the dirt for a reason.
100%. We're meant to be connected to that.
Yes.
No, not to be fearful. That's a takeaway too.
As soon as
Unless
I
you
went,
got wounds on your feet, open
Yeah,
wounds, then there's
maybe.
nothing wrong with
yeah.
walking on the grass,
Right.
walking on the dirt,
I
getting
gave
in
my
the
dog a
mud,
bath the
man.
other day. I gave my dog a bath the other day, and he immediately goes in and rolls in the dusty dirt, gets
That's right.
completely covered, and I just let it go, and then he dries off, and then it all falls off, and I'm like, okay, you're back to good now.
He's like, oh, I need to go reconnect with all the microbes you just washed off me.
That's right. That's absolutely right.
The animals are way more intuitive. We should just be following what they do.
Oh yeah, I gave the product to somebody here locally recently. It's another little ceramic product, and we were playing around with putting some fun things in there, including some microbes. And I
Mm.
said, "Here, give this put two dishes out. One bowl of the water you normally give them, and one of this." She goes, "Oh, if this works," she goes, my dogs don't drink water. They don't like." She goes, "They are lapping this up, you know." So
I
you
think
give the things back that nature provides, you put some structure and energy back in the water, and the animals will tell you.
I think that's also really true, though, depending on the quality of water you drink, might depend on your thirst for water, right? Because if you're drinking a toxin, possibly, your body may be kind of more adverse to it, and you might not be so thirsty. I know, I just think that, or if it's reverse osmosis, maybe your body's not going to want it as much. And I think the body's really intelligent. And when I did start drinking structured water, I had a high thirst for a little while. Like it was like
There
my
you go.
body wanted it. It was like drink more of this water, drink more of this water, drink more of this water. And that's not typical for me. Usually I don't have a high thirst. And I thought that was very interesting. And I was like, my body needed it. Like it needed me to replenish that. And it what my body was asking for it. And now it's of course back to normal, but it just was like a short period of time where my body wanted a lot of it, which I thought was so interesting.
Yep, you need to become satiated with the energetics of it for it. Yeah, and I have noticed that too. And I'll go through cycles of that too. And I'll be sitting working and intense on some project, and all of a sudden I'll push my chair back and I go, I need a drink of water.
Oh yeah. Well, also, I think that that probably is also because when we're working with Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, electromagnetics, it is dehydrating to us fundamentally on the mitochondrial level. So there's also that, like we need to also be tending to our inner water network. Like that's our body. It's not just about the water that we drink, it's also about the water that our mitochondria are making, right? That's also really important as well. And staying away from the things that dehydrate us on
That's
that.
another thing we found about Wata, and we just recently added part 4 to the article that we've got online.
Mm.
It actually helps the mitochondria produce a greater degree of deuterium depleted water.
Ooh, that we could, can you, we kind of have to have you back, honestly, because I don't want to press the stop button and
That's
chatting.
our evaluation, but we're going to be so bold as to say that because one of the things that we
That's
picked up when we
amazing.
started to drink this is I said, this water's deuterium depleted. And I talked to the company and they said, no, it's not. We had it tested. It's not. And we said, well, what's the deal if our bodies feel like it's deuterium depleted? And both me and Melanie were getting that same read off of it for months. And
Mm.
finally, we said, oh, okay, here's the deal. I think this is what's going on. It's making the mitochondrial process more efficient, and what's going into the mitochondria is more energized. Therefore, the resultant byproduct, which is
To change a bit.
metabolic water,
Yep.
which is deuterium depleted, I think they say typically it's about 60% deuterium depleted.
Mm-hmm.
But we get that when you're drinking wata, even if it's not your full, at this point in time, we're only drinking between a half and 1 liter a day. We started off drinking 1 liter a day. Even that is helping the body get rid of deuterium.
That's what I was going to ask you is how much you consume. Is it like a supplement? It sounds like you just use some of it.
I drink water, cradle water for the most part, and then I've got all kinds of whatever personally I'm doing with the water in the water cradle.
Mm-hmm.
And and then I start my day off with a cup of wata
Okay.
I
right
think
out
I'm
of
gonna
bed.
get myself a case and try it out and see what it does. I'm so curious. I
Yeah.
love experimenting too.
Give it a try when your body says go.
Right,
Yeah,
exactly.
I know,
That's
right,
you
Vanessa?
you picked up on my vibe there. It'll be like
You'll
something
find the
that,
right time.
yes, absolutely, absolutely.
So MJ, I know we're getting long on time, and I just wanted to tell you this has been absolutely delightful and edifying. I mean, you're like the best water that anyone could receive. You're so knowledgeable and generous. So thank you so much.
You're
Yes.
so kind. But this has been one of the funnest podcasts I've done because of the
Oh,
interaction with you too.
Thank
oh,
you.
You
thank
know, something just said, MJ, don't prepare. Just go with the flow on this one because,
yes, I love that.
yeah, you got to go with the flow. And you guys are easy to flow with. So thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, MJ, really seriously, it's been an honor to chat with you, and you are such a delight. And thank you so much for all the work that you're putting out there and the knowledge that you're spreading. Your book is amazing. I would definitely recommend it as a read for everybody who's interested in health and water and just wanting to take care of their body in the best ways they can and learning how to connect with nature and water again.
Yeah,
So,
be sure to go look at the website, dancingwithwater.com, and you've generously offered some discounts for our
yeah,
listeners, 10% off on the water cradle and also Electrum Ormus. So those are really
Correct. And
fantastic.
actually, I don't, when are you going to air this?
In a
oh,
month or so.
probably about a month or so. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah, you'll get 10% on both products.
Awesome.
There might even still be a sale on the Electromorphus. At
Awesome.
that point, we'll decide. So they might even get more off.
Wow. Thank
And
you.
the discount code was Quantum Health. So you're,
Quantum Health. Yeah.
yep. So thank you so much for that. That's very generous of you. And check it out. That'll be really fun. I want to cradle myself now. Now that's the next thing on my birthday or Christmas list.
All right, that sounds good. We'd
Yeah.
All
love to
right,
have one
MJ.
more out there.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Awesome. Yes.
Thank you
Thank
so
you
much,
so much,
MJ.
Thank you
MJ.
for having me. It's been good.
Awesome. Thank you.